Hello everyone, myself Hardi Gora and I am student of English department from Maharaja Krishna Kumar Singh Ji Bhavnagar University. We all students are celebrating Teachers Day virtually, and in that I am dealing with the God of the Small Thing by Arundhati Roy. Arundhati Roy was born 24th November 1961, Shillong, Meghalaya, and her occupation is writer, essayist, and political activist. Her writing genre fiction and non-fiction. Arundhati Roy is most famous Indian writer and political activist, and she awarded Booker Prize for the God of the Small Things.
Okay, so now let's discuss about the God of the small things. There are seven key facts about God of the small things. First one is Arundhati Roy drew upon her real life for many of the book's details. The God of the Small Things was Roy's first novel and it's divided in 21 chapters which are given by me in my blog. The title was Last Minute Decision. The God of the Small Things earned Roy a massive advance. It was an instant success both critically as well as commercially. Roy was charged with obscen- obscenity because of the book. It took Roy 20 years to publish her next work of fiction. So let's move further to the summary. The God of the Small Thing is based on two fraternal twins who reunite as young adults after family tension have kept them apart for many years. Rahel and Esther are fraternal twins. Rahel is a smart but impulsive young woman. Esther is a very serious and nervous young man. Their mother, Ammu, takes them to Aymanam to live with her family. Ammu and her twins live with her brother Chaco, his ex-wife Margaret, and their daughter Sophie, as well as baby Conchama, the twins' maternal great aunt. Because Ammu divorced her husband Babu because he is so cruel and always abused her physically and tried to sell Ammu to his boss Mr. Holick. That's why Ammu leaves him and come back to Daimanam with Rahel and Esther to live with Papachi and Mamachi. In this story, Arundhati Roy uses this idea to establish non-linear multi-perspective way of storytelling, which gives values to points of the big view as big men as a human beings and small as a cabbage green butterflies. The novel opens with Rahel's return to Eminem. After hearing that her twin brother Esther has come home, we switch the funeral of Sophie Mall. When the twins are 7 years old, Rahel believes that Sophie is awake during her funeral and buried alive. The rest of the family refuse to acknowledge the twins and Ammu. On the train ride back to Eminem, Ammu cannot speak except to say he's dead. I have killed him. Rahel and Esther have not seen each other since Esther was sent away as a child to live with Babu in Assam. Both twins have traveled somewhat aimlessly until returning to the childhood home. Rahel looks out on the family's former factory, Paradise Pickles and Preservers, and contemplates how all the strangers in her family revolves around the incidents of Sophie Mall's death. So, next we find the family traveling to Cochin to greet Sophie Mall and her mother, Margaret Conchamma. Upon their arrival from England, on their way, they see their servant Velutha marching with a group of commoners. Back in the present, Rahel watches Esther undress in moonlight. neither of them saying a word. The narrative return to Cochin, where the family goes to see the sound of music in the cinema. Inside the theater, Esther can't stop singing, so he is sent out into the lobby, where the orange drink lemon drink man molests him. After he becomes nauseated, the family leaves the movie early. Rahel sensed that the orange drink lemon drink man has wronged Esther and talks back to Ammu when she praises the man. Ammu tells her that she loves Rahel a little less, a statement that haunts Rahel for a long time. Comrade Pillai, and he shows her a photograph, the twins and Sophie, taken shortly before Sophie died. In the flashback, the Sophie's arrival at the Cochin airport, Rahel cannot handle the nervousness surrounding her cousin's arrival, and she is scolded for hiding in the window curtain. Everyone tries to impress Sophie and Margaret Conchamma with the new clothing. English sayings, the forced upbeated attitudes. After that, the narrative turns to Ammu's death at the age of 31 after being banished from Aymanam house. She dies while out of town on a job interview. Esther watches her body being pushed into the cremation oven. No one writes to Esther to inform him of Ammu's death. Roy introduced the refrain that things can change in a day. Now again come back to Sophie Mall's welcome ceremony. A crowd gathers to sing and eat cake. Rahel retreats to play with Velutha. As Ammu watches her daughter and handyman together, she is attracted to Velutha for the first time. After that, Rahel joins Astha, who is alone in the pickle factory. They plan to visit the history house where the Paravans live. They push an old decrepit boat the river and row to Velutha's side of the river. There he promises to fix the boat for them. Velutha is trying to suppress his growing love for Ammu despite his constant association with her children. Ammu dreams of a one armed man making love to her. Back in the present, Rahel watches fondly as Esther baths in the moonlight. The twins meet by coincidence at the temple, where they watch Kathakali dancers act out a violent story of retribution all night. We turn to the story of Chakos and Margaret Conchoma's marriage. It began happily but soon crumbled because of sense of disconnection. Margaret left Chaco for Joe, who later died in accident. After that, she took Sophie to Aymanam as a distraction. She can never forgive herself for leaving Sophie alone in Aymanam the day she died. We finally hear the story of Sophie Moll's death and the events surrounding it. Velleya Papin comes to Mamachi's door and offers to kill Velutha with his bare hands for having affair with Ammu. Baby Conchamma makes sure that Ammu is locked in her room and that the police think he raped Ammu. Mamachi summons Velutha to her house and fires him, banishing him from the property on the pain of the death. He goes to Comrade Pillai for the help but to no avail. Roy begins to call Velutha the god of loss and the god of small things. The telling of Sophie's actual death is short. She joins the twins as they run away after Ammu insults them terribly. After their boat capsizes in the river, she drowns. The twins fall asleep on the veranda of the history house, unaware that Velutha is sleeping there. Then the next morning, the police come across the river, arrest Velutha. They beat him nearly the death and take the twins to the with them. Their baby Conchama pressures Estha into saying Velutha is guilty of kidnapping him and Rahel. She tells him that doing so is the only way to save Ammu and avoid a life in jail. Estha complies thus saving baby Conchama from being arrested for filing a false report about Velutha. After that, baby Conchama coerces Chaco into evicting Amu from the house of forcing Esther to go live with Babu. As Esther leaves on the train, Rahel cries and throw a part of her is being ripped out of her body. Rahels finally share a fond moment in Amu's former bedroom. They make love out of hideous grief for the deaths of Amu, Velutha, and Sophie Mall. In the concluding and the final chapter describes that the first night of Amu's and Velutha's affair, they are both drawn to riverbank where they meet and make love for the first time. After that, they continue to meet in secret and share their admiration of small things, such as creatures of the riverbank. Each night, as they part, they say to know one another, "Tomorrow, tomorrow." On the last night they meet before Velutha's death, Amu is compelled to turn back to repeat one more time, "Tomorrow." And here we can say that Arundhati Roy ended this novel with unexpected ending. These small things highly affected Esther and Rahel's life. That's why at the end of the novel they got intimated to each other.
As we discussed earlier, these four themes are based on the novel, which are family and social obligation, Indian politics, society and class, love and sexuality, change versus preservation, and the small things.
So, in the last, I would like to present one quote according to The God of the Small Thing by Arundhati Roy. I am very conscious that from the time of God of Small Things was published 10 years ago, we are in a different world which needs to be written about differently, and I really very much wanted to do that.